nowadays largely people go by online. So that has become challenging. Challenging in the sense that some people go online, some remain offline. So hope clearing prelims. First time writing?
No, sir. This is my third time.
Third time.
But last two, my last two books were not fully prepared. This time I was more confident.
This time.
Yes.
The last time when you wrote mains? Means 2023.
No, I'm talking about prelims.
Prelims. Okay. The first time you will write mains.
Hopefully. Yes.
Yes. So mains prepared? Going on. Anyhow, so let's take that. Basically, we have started. Yes, people still are in somehow that this uncertainty, whether they are clearing, they are not clearing, that we can consider. So, this questions. Anyhow, so basically we have designed this program, already details are given, isn't it? And each day we will have this 5 questions, you write the answers, and that will become basis for your evaluation and improvement. Right? Have you got that question? This. So will you be able to write answers? Yes, so not in still preparation mode. Oh. So what we have done is, see, since nowadays we do not have much time for mains examination, only almost 2 months are left. So when 2 months are left, so in that case, let's say what one should have the strategy, although it is not, let's say, strategy, because strategy we have told in a recorded lecture. So we wanted to start it first, but yes, we know students are also not in that mode to start writing. Plus, we'll give you, if you do not have, let's say, that notes, so we'll give you also our class handwritten notes. Especially for, let's say, GS paper 2nd and GS paper 4. Right? So if you do not have notes, so you can get that notes, you can read it, something. This is how prepared notes of class. You can read the relevant topics. So those relevant topics can be read. This can be one aspect. Next, basically what you should do is, you should try to know the most important topics. So you should know the most important topics. What are most important topics? For each paper, you know that. And for that we have, let's say, we have recorded videos, let's say that. So you can watch those videos. Or let's say each teacher may tell you when they will take their classes. I will talk about GS paper 2nd today. I will tell you those important aspects. But there are also videos, let's say, in which we are saying it. It is in 10 minutes. So you can watch, see the important topics, because it is very important to know the important topics. The first thing is knowing important topics. Then let's say other things, let's say that the other aspects are related with, let's see, some commands. So do we care the commands of the question? Do we know their meaning? That aspect. Third aspect is called, let's say that, called structuring. Structuring of the answers, that aspect you can say. Fourth is, let's say, I generally say this, quantity versus quality. This, what we should maintain, let's say, the quantity versus quality, that is called completion of paper. This next is, let's see, role of facts. Facts, let's say, examples and case laws in case of paper second. This, how they play their role. So means basically how you can write good answer, let's say. The question is that good answer. So what is good answer? This, that is how you have to know in given time how you can, let's say, write good answer. This, so that way we can say in this case. So if you take, let's say, today's session is related to 4 topics. Four topics which are related to historical underpinnings. Then next, and making of Constitution. The next is called, let's call part 1, 2, then 3, part 4, then we have fundamental duties. So you know that key from this section they have asked one question, that is your Government of India Act 1935. This. So far since 2013 they have asked questions, let's say that Government of India Act 1935. This, it means that we can take risk. This is not foundation class, so we can take risk. Take risk is that you can only prepare or practice 1935 Act if in case they repeat it. This, or let's say that in a way it can be that already you may have prepared for your prelims, so that prelims knowledge will help if at all they ask any other such acts. Although let's say that if you guess, so there can be possibility of regulating Act 1773, that can be asked, 1853, that can be asked, और 19 पूछने को तो कुछ भी आ सकता है. This, but you don't have time, we are also not going to focus, but we have been expecting questions, so far they have not asked questions. So it's only that you should prepare on this aspect. If at all they repeat, otherwise we may not find that they will ask question. We have asked in this test a question which includes all. This is how we have covered. We have asked in such a way that it is about entire historical underpinnings, ki overall your knowledge in that, this, ki how it helps or how it has influenced our Indian polity. This way, making of Constitution, so no question has been asked. Although once they ask about structural aspect of Constitution and philosophical aspect of Constitution, once they have asked related to structural and philosophical. This, so structural, you will find that structural is related to Government of India Act 1935. Philosophical, they were linking to, let's say that US, Ireland. This, basically the philosophical part we take, let's say DPSP we have taken from Ireland. Fundamental duties, let's say liberal, let's say democratic principles if you talk, so we take from US, although we can add others also. This, so once they ask this question, Otherwise, they have not asked question also on that. So we will not go into this aspect. If you talk, let's say part second and let's say first and second, no question has been asked. From this part, no question has been asked. But let's say that can we ignore it? So even if question has not been asked, but let me tell that, what are the possibility 1 to 4? So basically, when you take 1 to 4, in that 1 to 4, this 1, 2, 3, they are related to nature of polity. Nature of polity and creation of states. So, since it talks about, this one talks about union of states, it determines the nature of polity. So even if let's say it is not asked, but it determines the nature of polity, this way we can consider. Plus it can be linked to our federal polity. It can be linked to federal polity. Plus it can be linked to, let's say that Jammu and Kashmir judgment. Jammu and Kashmir judgment also we can link it. So even if question is not asked, but still let's say that they can be. So in that way it depends on UPSC how it is going to ask questions relating to that. So it does have importance. Same thing related to if you take the second part. So part second has one, let's say, CA law. Although current affairs we have kept classes separately, so current affairs will take separate class, there we'll talk about. So the question is this, let's say part second. So CA law may be asked, may not be asked. Right. Citizenship Amendment Act. The Citizenship Amendment Act now that has come into force in 2024, let's say that. Since then it has come into force. It was in news. If you take from current side, from conventional side, they have not asked any question. But it is a current development, so there can be possibility of that they can ask this question. But it is not very high possibility. This you should know. You can take risk, you can leave it. Because we are going for any high possibility, you can say that. What is the high possibility? This you can say. So if you take, let's say that making of constitution, we are not focusing much on historical underpinnings, only Government of India Act 1935, and let's say this you should know the 1, 2, 3 aspect how they determine nature of Indian polity, especially the federal nature, unitary nature, union of states, that we can consider. So this way, because it has been in news also, Article 1, the government wanted to remove the term India. You know that. The government wanted to remove the term India. It wanted to have only Bharat. But it was not done. So in that case we can consider. So that is how, let's till or before part 3. Then part 3 is the most important. So part 3 we consider the most important aspect. Now in this you will find that they have asked questions largely from Article 19 and they have asked questions from Article 21. Now 19 has 1 also and it has clause 2 also. Last year they have asked from this. The very less possibility again they will ask Article 21. So we will take a risk, we will not go by this. Then we will go by this, Article 19. So that is how the guessing or possibility of question asked. Now it is very wide, you know that. Article 19, 1A. This, in fact, once they have asked also right to movement wala part. In this, there is also right to movement. They have asked this linking section. Let me tell that what they have asked. They have asked from this section 66A of Information Technology Act. That question they have asked. Film they have asked. And let's say that key freedom. Freedom of expression in film, how it is different from freedom of expression in general we can consider. So that question they asked. So, and then they ask, let's say, right to movement wala part. So 3 times you will find that they have asked question on this aspect. What other aspects are, let's say that? Other aspect. This. So other aspects let's say depends on you how you will read Article 19 clause 2, especially contempt of court. There can be question on sedition side, defamation. These are other possibility. Or we say another question that can be asked related to this right to internet, this and internet regulation. Internet regulation that rules government has 2017 this. So these are the other possibilities, but we have asked a question from 19 related to, let's see, reasonable restriction, 1A and reasonable restrictions. See, there are so many things, but how many, let's say that if you design any program, you talk about practice, you cannot have practice on each and everything at this stage. This. Rather, let's say that we can have practice, you can say that at earlier stage before appearing in mains examination, because everything cannot be asked. But they are all potential questions, you should be prepared. Because contempt of court, if you will find this, so it makes sense to ask question. Sedition has been in news, you know that, and also in, let's say, let's say the government has drafted IPC, it has brought some changes in that. In that way we can consider defamation has also remained in news. This, we have been expecting even this question also, right to internet wala question. It is a recent development and they have not asked so far this question. So you should be prepared on Article 19(1) and the several aspects of Article 19(1), including, let's say, that reasonable restriction that can be considered. So that's why we consider it as important topic, let's say that, in fundamental rights. Then, पूछने को again, it is like there can be question on Article 15, there can be article on 16, that can be related to even, let's say, EWS reservation. There can be question on reservation, merit, and efficiency. This, that also there can be a question because they have not asked question. Even we can expect Article 14 and question equality and, let's say that reasonable classification. This, so that can be, and the next can be even a question on, let's say, Article 25, freedom of religion, which we have asked. Freedom of religion, let's say that. Now you have to take a call, okay, whether you will ask a question on this, you will ask a question on this, right, or you will ask a question on this. So already people can have lots of practice on reservation aspect. They are familiar also with reservation aspect. This you can say. Equality to some extent also they may write, but this can be a bit, let's say that ki, surprise also, you know that, what they will write. So in that sense we can consider that ki, we have gone into and asking this 25 wala, this. At the same time, let's say if you talk fundamental rights, so we can expect also question related to call this Article 31 that has been abolished. So if it is about Article 300, I can say that, right to property. So there can be also a question on right to property, simply because let's say properties, the way they have been destroyed, you can say that ki, yes, the way the properties are being destroyed, you can say bulldozer action, you can say, or even you can say ki slums and other things are removed at will without proper notice, you can find here and there. So in that case also you should know that we have been expecting a question which UPSC can frame in such a way that it can incorporate these developments in the question. So that way we can consider, let's say, even a question on this aspect. And then we have, let's say, there can be even question on Article 32, let's say that constitutional remedies and writs. So these are the potential area if you find. So far they have not asked, let's say, related to writs or property, let's say equality they have asked, you know that. Equality they have asked in different fashion, comparing with US, India, let's say that, or they, in that context they have asked. So you should prepare yourself these things. We will, let's say that, try to just talk on this, whatever the questions we have. Yes, if people lack material on anything, they can ask, they can seek. So we can provide you material on that. If you lack any proper notes, etc. That's why we told that we will give you some handwritten notes or even some other handouts. It depends on how much you read this time, whether you have time to read at all. That way we can say. So this, then if you talk about call DPSP, from DPSP section, let's say that they have not asked much questions. It is not as important as you can say fundamental rights. And let's see, on DPSP side you can consider that once they ask question related to Uniform Civil Code, and once they ask question related to LPG, how LPG and related welfare, So that way they have asked question. So we will not say that they will ask again Uniform Civil Code, although you should be prepared because you know that UPSC repeats also. And recently, let's say again a law commission was set up. So a law commission was set up in 2015 and it gave recommendation. But again you should know that government set up a panel headed by Ramnath Govind. So panel headed by Ramnath Govind, let's say, and it has submitted report on Uniform Civil Code. So it is in news. Anything in news, you should prepare them. This is one. Then as far as this is concerned, so it is once they have asked, we do not think they will repeat it. So we do not find, let's say, DPSP. Yes, in DPSP, since again current we have kept separate, so there I will talk, but we cannot dissociate, let's say that, this Article 39, B and C are under challenge, let's say, court is reviewing. It is related to redistributive justice. It is about redistribution of wealth, right? Now, how it is related to current developments? It is related to current developments in the sense that, let's call what we say, Indian National Congress political agenda is, right, it is saying it will bring redistribution of wealth. right? So in that way it is in news. And how in elections the opposition means the ruling party, let's say ridicule this कि let's say कि आपका मंगल सूत्र भी दे देंगे like this. So it is in news in that way. Now Supreme Court is scrutinizing this. The Supreme Court is also scrutinizing this, let's say that this. So there can be an indirect reference, a question can be asked like this, कि how it has been able to promote redistribution in society. How this article has been able to promote redistribution in society. That way question can be asked. So this way we can see, and that is how you can prepare on this aspect. And then it is called fundamental duties, so you can escape fundamental duties because questions are not asked from that area, and if at all it is asked, we expect your prelims knowledge can help. This way we can say. So that is what the today's topic we can say that we have. So next aspect is, since it is the first class, next aspect comes related to answer, let's say, questions, commands, let's say that. Commands of the, let's say, questions. Do we understand the meanings of the commands? We have commands like, let's say, discuss, this comment, this examine, evaluate, this argue, explain. So they can be, let's say, single, let's say, one word command. Then you can have 2 words command. 2 words command. And it relates to, let's say, this critically examine, critically evaluate, critically evaluate, this, that you can consider. Critically analyze, this. In past also they have asked, let's say that, this, critically discuss, critically comment. Once it was asked, around 2016 or 17, let's say that. This, so once it was asked in that way. Now the first question is that, do we follow? Should we follow? Or we should be just concerned about answers? No. So do you have ever answer writing, like say, have you done answer writing, and whether you are familiar with these terms?
There is a lot of confusion in these terms. Sometimes
Lots.
it's easy, sometimes I really get confused.
Yes. What about online people, whether they understand these terms? Do you have understanding? Do you think these things matter at all, or we should simply ignore it? There is no two-way communication. Right. See, let me tell that at the end of the day, the answer you write, that is how it is evaluated, right? So even if you do not know, it may not do serious harm. But in some cases, there can be serious harm, provided they ask those commands. At times, they do not ask them. entire 20 questions if you see in GS paper, the entire 20 questions in GS paper may not have them. At least one question can have. One question. Let's say तो only one question has the 19 question. क्या पता कि ये आंसर ही आपने ठीक से नहीं किया होगा. So harm is less. Harm is less. This we can consider. This is first. Second aspect is that when they ask it, so they ask in two ways. They can ask before question, they can ask after question. Two types of question you can get. Before question and after question. So to some extent, let's say suppose you have written the content by reading the question, still you may be rewarded marks. ऐसा नहीं कि उसमें 0 मिलने वाला है. Marks will be rewarded. But certainly let's say that it gives an understanding to an examiner that the candidate does not mind the commands of the question. So it gives an idea of, let's say, indiscipline. Indiscipline, let's say that. Although market में जो philosophy बिकता है वो ये बिकता है कि these things do not matter, hardly anyone, any topper will talk on that matter. They just say that कि हमने आंसर में ये लिखा वो लिखा, कैसे लिखा नहीं लिखा, they do not talk on that. But whether UPSC is fool to ask these things, isn't it? If these things do not matter, so why UPSC is asking these things? Rather simply they should write a question, no command. And they should ask students to answer. There is another thing, elaborate. This. So basically they do have differences and you need to bring some minor changes in your answers when they ask like this. This in some cases. So let's take one by one. Suppose we will take about the single meaning wala. We will start with simple one. So when we have elaborate, elaborate means simply what you have to do? Expand this, let's say, question, demand, or let's say that whatever the sentence given. Right. You see, because question is whatever question has been framed. This. Suppose it says that article 14 has, right, or 14 provides, right, equality before law. And equal protection of law. And elaborate. So basically it is saying that you expand it. This in a way it is called explanation also, but you have to just expand it. Means if it is of 2 lines, the question is of 10 marks, to expand it to 150 words. So it is a simple, let's say that command, a positive command, it does not invite any criticism. Right. So in this, generally we do not write no criticisms. Simply whatever the sentence given, question given, we elaborate it. That we follow. Now, there is another, let's say, command which I did not write, elucidate. This elucidate. So, elucidate. Now let's say that what elucidate means. Make it lucid. Make it lucid. Make it lucid means make it clear. Make it clear. How will we make it clear? The clear we make by examples, illustrations. this. So basically, let's say कि difference between elaborate and elucidate will be that it is demanding this. Examples से clear होना चाहिए, means you have to make the question whatever they have asked clear.
ये मुझे आज किया हुआ
Right. So again, let's say कि again you don't have to criticize. No criticism. Yes. So such questions are framed in a way that they are not asking criticism. The purpose of question is not to ask criticism. The purpose is that are you able to explain it? This. Are you able to explain with example to make it clear? जैसे कोई मीनिंग है उसको क्लियर करना है, राइट? कोई आइडिया है, कोई क्वेश्चन है उसको क्लियर करना है. दिस. सो लेट्स से दैट कि सपोज इसी क्वेश्चन को हम बोलते हैं दे लेट्स से प्रोवाइड्स लेट्स से डील्स विथ इक्वालिटी बिफोर लॉ एंड इक्वल प्रोटेक्शन ऑफ लॉ, और इसी को थोड़ा सा और आगे बढ़ाते हैं एंड दे हैव कॉम्प्लीमेंट रिलेशनशिप इलूसिडेट, दे हैव कॉम्प्लीमेंट रिलेशनशिप. They have complement relationship and elucidate. Now complement part explanation demands some examples, then you can make it clear ki how they are complementary. This. So how they are complementary, this is how it will help you. That is how the purpose. So when UPSC is framing any question, so and they are giving different commands, basically they want that, let me tell, see, questions are guided by commands. Means UPSC is saying you answer the way we demand. Not the way you think. This. But there is a brute force. You know that? Brute force. At the end of the day, मार्केट यहाँ तक जा चुका है कि बस आंसर लिखना है किसी तरीके से. दैट कंसर्न. सो दैट लेट्स से दैट कि डिसिप्लिन सिंस टॉपर एटसेट्रा मार्क्स हैव स्टार्टेड कमिंग, बट वी डू टीच टू आवर कैंडिडेट्स. किसी भी कैंडिडेट वी हैव बीन टीचिंग, वी हैव बीन टेलिंग देम, वी हैव बीन एडहियरिंग टू सच थिंग्स एंड वी डू टेल. सो देखो यूपीएससी क्या है, कोई भी लेट्स से दैट जैसे क्रिकेट में क्या होता है लाइन एंड लेंथ. You have to maintain line and length. A bowler has to maintain line and length. So otherwise you know what will happen. The same thing is, let's say commands are nothing but line and length of your answer. How you have to answer, what you have to answer, they decide. Yes. Now many times suppose a candidate, आजकल तो वैसे ही कल्चर हो गया हर जगह एग्जाम्पल लिखने का, ठीक है, तो आदत हो गया है लिखने का, तो यहाँ एग्जाम्पल लिख दोगे तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. यहाँ लिख दिया तो इस क्वेश्चन का डिमांड फुलफिल हो गया, बाय डिफॉल्ट मार्क्स आ गया दोनों जगह. राइट. दिस सिंस बोथ आर पॉजिटिव. अब उसको अगर किसी ने ये बताया कि हर क्वेश्चन में क्रिटिसिज्म लिखना है तो वो फंस जाएगा इसमें. इस तरह के क्वेश्चन में जहां क्वेश्चन पॉजिटिव है, क्रिटिसिज्म्स नहीं लिखना था, तो ही विल राइट क्रिटिसिज्म्स. राइट. नाउ examiners will give marks, it's not like that, but they will not reward desired marks, right? You know that. And each, let's say, marks are 0.5, all these things ultimately count. You know that at the end of the summation if you bring. If they are deducting, they have given कि चलो content अच्छा है. कई बार नहीं होता है कि taste अच्छा है, right? Content अच्छा है, right? This. तो मार्क्स दे दिया उसको, बट certainly they will reduce it, restrict it if commands are not followed. Right? Now, another positive command will be explain. This. Another positive, let's say, command will be explain. So you have to explain. Now let's say that explain means again question is not demanding. Right? It is a sort of elaboration. It is a sort of elaboration you will find. This, which is also not demanding criticism. This. So, there are three commands: explain, elaborate, elucidate. They generally do not invite criticisms. This, that is how we should understand. Like this, they do not, let's say, they are one of one category. This. Then let's bring change in our debate. Next is called comment. Now, when they write comment in the question, so basically they have left you in a lurch, in let's say deep ocean they have left you. And which side you will go? Right. So people say that ki comment means ki you have to express your view. Yes, you have to express your view. It basically means give your view. It basically means give your view, let's say that. You have to give your view on this. तो कोई भी statement है जिस पे comment, if you have any statement, let me see what we have given. It is discuss, then describe, then examine, and then critically examine, and then critically analyze. So these are, we have not asked, right? Anyhow, so when you have to comment on anything, let me say this. Yes. So you are free to give your view. This is how. So it is saying ki give your views on the statement. Part 3 of the Constitution imposes limitations on the government, and you have to comment on that. The comment means ki yes, you have to give view on that. What you will do? You will write about part 3. Then you will tell how it imposes limitations. How it imposes limitation, that you will talk. This, but at the same time, let's say that you have to take. So you will do. Will you agree completely with this? It impose limitation on the government, or let's say that the government does have also some powers. So basically, you have to draw. Let's say that means you have to give a view on this aspect. Means you have to express. So you are free to express and take a side. So you can tell that yes, it imposes limitation because it is justiciable part. It is justiciable part. But at the same time, let's say that we have also Article 19 and Clause 2. And this gives power to the state to regulate or restrict fundamental rights. This. So limitations are there because fundamental rights are important. So basically what you are trying to do is that you are trying to express a view on that. Now, comment may bring criticism, may not bring criticism. This, since you are giving view, the may or may not have criticism. This, it depends on the question, let's say that, the nature of question, this, which will become clear further when you write, when any question will come related to comment, when we will explain it, you will understand. But it is like may or may not, this is how. criticism. It depends on nature of the question. That is how we mean by comment, which means let's give view. Next is called, let's say that comment, then discuss, let's say that. This discuss is very common. Discuss is a kind of describe or explain plus weaknesses and then conclusion. The first time we talked that any such question where you can write also weaknesses or criticisms. This. So, this it means it is describe plus criticism. Discuss is equal to this, it is like explain plus criticisms. That is how we mean by discuss. Let's say when the question will come, so we'll talk on this aspect. Next in the line comes examine. Examine means scrutiny. This examine means scrutiny. Now, when we scrutinize anything, so it can be positive also, it can be negative also. It is testing, act of testing, let's say that. This, let's say that ki food you are asked to test. So you can say that it is tasty. You can say it is not tasty. This. So when they are asking examine, so this is what we have to do basically. The way doctor examines patient. तो डॉक्टर जो है पेशेंट को एग्जामिन करता है. So doctor can find serious problem also, doctor can find normal problem also, doctor may not find problem at all. So questions are framed, those who are writing examine, so they are, let's say, framed from that perspective. Right? You yourself is scrutinized to what extent a particular thing they are asking, let's say that, this. So, to what extent it is true, to what extent it is not true, these things you will try to answer in that question. This. It means that you will elaborate it. After elaborating, you have to, let's say that, find this part. To what extent it is acceptable. Extent, let's say that correct, incorrect, that way. So that should be, let's say that aspect when we talk about examine part. Now next is called argue, let's say that when we say argue. So argue, we know that the way we argue something, argue may, we may give, let's say that we can give pros also, we can give cons also. Now it is not necessary कि both will be 50-50. Argue अगर आप कर रहे हैं तो थोड़ा वो मतलब कि cons हो सकता है, ज़्यादा pros हो सकता है, कम pros हो सकता है, ज़्यादा cons हो सकता है, या 50-50 भी हो सकता है. This, it can be like this also, it can be like this also, it can be like this also. If you take pros and cons. This. So that way it can happen. This when we talk about argue part, because the question has been, let's say, such kind of things you will find more in ethics paper, right? Argue, elucidate, that will find examine. They ask more in ethics paper. This. So that way, let's say they leave you. The question has been designed in such a way that you have to yourself decide to what extent you should argue on that and give your pros and cons. And then last single one is called evaluate. So when we talk about evaluate, it simply means pros and cons. Yes. So it is a question where you can have this 50-50 let's say, because it has been designed in a way कि negative भी है positive भी है, this उसमें argue वाला element नहीं है, this. So what they will do is that basically they will suppose a question, the question is positive, but they will deliberately design it as negative, or it is negative, they will design it as positive, this. So this is how pros and cons will come, this. Now बच्चे let's say that examiner को let's say कि where examiners will feel these things, तो जब evaluate है और बच्चा जो है डिस्कस कर रहा है, या जब डिस्कस है और बच्चा जो है इवैल्यूएट कर रहा है, मतलब जहाँ प्रोस एंड कॉन्स नहीं लिखना है वहाँ वो प्रोस एंड कॉन्स लिख रहा है, दिस. तो देन लेट्स से दैट कि बेसिकली दे गेट दिस चैलेंज, एंड देन लेट्स से दैट कि यू गेट स्टक, मीन्स कि देन एग्जामिनर विल माइंड इट. Otherwise, in general, let's say कि if these commands are not given, so students are writing their answer. At the end of the day, market में ये भी है, sorry to say that, कि जो evaluators होते हैं, evaluators को खुद ही ये सब clear नहीं है. Right? They are themselves not clear on that. They do not follow all these things. Just simple answer is evaluated. कि introduction ठीक है, points लिखा है, example लिखा है, कुछ conclude किया है, that's okay. This. Now next stage is called the double aspect, let's say, with two meaning, let's say. First let's say that two words. Two words में there is a call critically evaluate and critically examine, this. And next is called critically analyze. This. Now it can be used in this way, two ways. One, so critically examine whether this this. So critically examine whether welfare LPG has diluted welfare nature of state, right? ये क्वेश्चन हो गया जहाँ पे कमांड कहाँ पे है, क्वेश्चन के पहले है. This you have to understand. It is just before question. Next is let's. Yes. इसी क्वेश्चन को हमने दूसरे तरीके से फ्रेम कर दिया. And now command is written. This. So they can ask, you go and read past year papers. Critically examine can be asked in beginning of the question. Critically examine can be asked in after end of the question.
So this also makes a difference.
Yes. This also makes difference. Right. Like in ethics paper you will see that, so they ask beginning, critically evaluate the options, right? Ethics paper, case study, so what they write? Critically evaluate the options. So what we basically write? We write pros and cons, यही कर रहे होते हैं, right? Options का, तो ये तो क्लियर हो गया यहाँ पर कि हमें ये करना है. इसका मतलब यहाँ पे अगर ये पहले आता है तो हमें क्या लिखना है? Pros and cons. It is in a way equal to evaluate. उन्होंने लिखा क्यों है? ये लिखने का तरीका है. Right. Evaluate भी लिख सकते हैं critically, but critically examine, critically evaluate का मतलब हो गया थोड़ा और ज़्यादा critical. Right. This, but it means pros and cons. Evaluate means also pros and cons. Right. But now आपको इससे पता चलता होगा कि ये question हमने negative कर दिया and then command is, तो what does it mean? It means critically examine when it is given after question. So they have asked a wrong question. This, and you have to understand कि वो question is wrong, you have to reject it. This. So it is a wrong question, it demands to reject the question. जो भी क्वेश्चन में प्रोपोजिशन बना रहा है, जो भी प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा है क्वेश्चन, उसको हमें रिजेक्ट करना है. तो क्वेश्चन क्या प्रोजेक्ट कर रहा है कि एलपीजी हैज नॉट अफेक्टेड वेलफेयर नेचर, तो हमें इसको रिजेक्ट करके बोलना है कि नहीं, एलपीजी हैज अफेक्टेड वेलफेयर नेचर. दिस, तो यू हैव टू टेक अ स्टैंड. इसमें क्या है कि हमें एक स्टैंड लेना है, एंड द गिवन क्वेश्चन वी हैव टू रिजेक्ट. We don't have to only criticize. It is more than criticism. We have to take a stand on this. And it is most difficult command. This, because question can be itself difficult, right? And then the command, तो टेकिंग स्टैंड, आजकल स्टैंड कौन लेता है? गवर्नमेंट तो लेती नहीं है, लोग भी ऐसे ही हो गए. राइट. आप क्वेश्चन को सिंपल आप लिख देना चाहते हो, प्रोस एंड कॉन्स, वे फॉरवर्ड. अरे स्टैंड क्या है, कुछ पता ही नहीं चला. दिस, सो दैट इज हाउ विल फाइंड दैट कि दिस कमांड, एंड दैट इज हाउ इट इज चैलेंजिंग इन ए वे. इट इज चैलेंजिंग टू अंडरस्टैंड, एंड दैट इज हाउ एक्सिक्यूट. सो वी विल लर्न थ्रू द राइटिंग्स these commands you can consider. Now, when we are, let's say that case, same thing, it evaluate whether it is examine, both have the same meaning, right? This. Then if you go to next level called, the next level is considered as, let's say, critically analyze. When we say it as critically analyze this. So this critical analysis, when we talk, so basically it is, you have analysis. Analyze is also one such command. Analyze means in-depth view. You have to give in-depth view. This. Like in-depth, let's say AC is an in-depth view. When you are writing essay, the essay is, it is written there, analysis, your analytical power, let's say that. The essay is an in-depth view, means question is demanding that you go in the in-depth of that matter. This, and write an analytical answer. This analysis means analytical answer. People are writing point format. 4 point उधर लिखा, 4 point against लिखा. एनालिसिस में भी लेट्स से कि नेसेसरली इसमें क्रिटिसिज्म लेट्स से कि नॉट, इट मीन्स क्रिटिसिज्म्स नॉट नेसेसरली नीडेड. because you have to give analysis. The analysis may not necessarily have criticism. Now, when we say critically analyze, when we talk about, when we say that critically analyze, so this critically analyze when we are talking, so then let's say that critically analyze means not criticism. It does not mean criticism. What it means? Critical view. So whether your analysis is based on some critical facts, this, let's say that. So the criteria of reasonable restriction, this criteria of reasonable has affected this scope of freedom under आर्टिकल 19(1)(a). अब मैं लिखता हूँ एनालिसिस, एनालाइज। तो बेसिकली आपको एक इन डेप्थ व्यू देना है, इस पे कंडीशन नहीं है। Whenever, let me come back to, so whenever we have these things, they basically put condition. This they put condition on your answer, let's say. That is how I was trying to say here. This yes. Now analysis, it is not putting any condition on your answer. So you can give your analysis, you can give critical facts, you cannot give critical facts. But suppose we add here critically analyze. Critically analyze, then what we are trying to say? You have to prove by some facts that how it has affected the scope of freedom under this. You don't have to write against it. Rather, इसी को आपको proof करना पड़ेगा, evidence देना पड़ेगा. This, you have to give evidence. That is a precondition. So this is what you will find, that the commands, related different types of commands, and once you understand the commands, that sharpens your art of writing skill, that you become more, let's say that disciplined in your writing, and your answers will be as per what question is demanded. This. So this is what, as far as commands are concerned. Then other things when we talk, let's say that balancing quality and quantity, what is, let's say that? This. When we talk about quantity and quality, it is related to the paper, let's say that. Paper, let's say you have 20 questions. Right. Now let's say that you will not be able to attempt, let's say that this, depending on your speed and etc., let's say 10 to 12 questions qualitatively. This. You cannot attempt each and every question qualitatively. only some questions you can attempt qualitatively. Means over 10 to 12 questions. Rest questions you have to complete. Right. You have to complete. Let's analyze this. Suppose that we complete 20 questions, but answer is average. Then you calculate its average marks, right? Average marks जो भी आएगा मान लो वो X आता है. And then a candidate who writes 10 to 12 questions, very good, qualitative, and then he is not able to complete 2-3 questions left. Not able to complete. तो आप इसका मार्क्स जोड़ लो. Right? He is writing good answers, but he is not able to complete the paper. This, if you calculate the marks, let's say it is Y. In that case, X will be more than Y. This, because these 2-3 questions will be dent on his overall marks. That's why we have to plan in such a way that you have to have writing practice in such a way. Suppose you are writing 5 questions. So you can plan that 3 questions I will try to write in a qualitative manner. 2 questions I will just try to complete anyhow. So that whatever the time assigned, I am able to complete the paper. Because completing paper is first task. Right? Why? Let's calculate. 4 papers we have multiplied by 20 questions. So you have 80 questions. Then you have optional subjects. And in optional, you attempt, as far as my knowledge is concerned, 19 questions you have to attempt. The 19 questions. Then it's, let's say that 9 this. और एथिक्स पेपर में इतने क्वेश्चन नहीं होते हैं, राइट. 13 and 6 19 ही होते हैं मान लो एक पेपर में. तो एक क्वेश्चन कम हो जाएगा तो 79. तो बेसिकली 98 क्वेश्चंस, राइट. अब 98 क्वेश्चंस में से सपोज आप कंप्लीट नहीं कर रहे हो क्वेश्चन, तो अगर आपका 1 या 2 भी छूट रहा है, राइट, पूरे पेपर में, तो इसमें हो गया 8 क्वेश्चन. अगर यहाँ भी 1-2 छूट रहा है इसमें भी, तो लेट से 2, तो हो गया 10. तो 98 में से 10 माइनस कर दो, ये हो गया 88. ये 10 क्वेश्चन ही आपको क्वालिफाई ना क्वालिफाई का डिफरेंस क्रिएट कर देगा. So quality and quantity we have to understand, and we have to think that I don't have to leave any vacant space in my answer copy if I know even a single word about the question. This. If you have this thing in your mind that I have to complete my paper, so henceforth from today onwards, when you are going for practice, when you are going for practice, let's say, when you are practicing, that will be in your mind. You will keep these things in your mind. I have to complete my paper. That is how the target. I will share the AI third ranker, Uma, let's say that, Uma story, let's say. In 2022, you know that the paper was very lengthy, especially ethics paper, case studies. You know that 1.5 page also, right? Now, an intelligent candidate, after seeing that paper, may tell to himself, herself, see, completing paper this year will be rewarding itself. Because most of the candidates will not be able to complete the paper. Then she changed her strategy. What is strategy? I don't have to write anything extra in the answer. Right. I have to just write only the relevant key terms, key words in answer. I have to write it. So that is changing strategy on the spot when you see the paper. So we teach to the students that the completion of paper is very important Hence, you have to maintain a balance between quality and quantity, let's say this. That is, some questions are try to answer 10, 12 questions, are daily practicing you have, so try to let's say at least 3 questions, you give complete focus, it gives time, write them properly, but next 2 questions try to just finish them off, like, and that way you will have this kind of let's say tendency in you, inclination in you, and a bent of mind in you. Right? That is how about let's say quality and quantity aspect you can consider. Next is called what is good answer. There is no any definition of this. Right? A good answer is one which addresses let's rather I will say which this. So what does it mean? It is not only command, let's say, whether you have properly structured. The structuring is not a challenge, basically in GS paper. There's some, except some questions. The structuring is not a challenge, people will be able to do that. Problem will be that they may face the challenge at this level. Then here there is a problem. Fundamental content, facts and examples, right? Like say that have you written, because it depends on your quality of knowledge. Quality of knowledge. Yes. So you have quality of knowledge, quality of facts, quality of examples. They will decide in that. Yes. And that is how, let's say that since you differ, people differ, that is how ultimately it is not writing a skill. Rather it is ultimately this which differentiate, right, a good answer from a poor one. This. And people think that no, it is writing skill. But suppose कि सब्सटेंस नहीं होगा, आपको खाना बनाने आता है लेकिन सब्सटेंस है नहीं, इंग्रेडिएंट्स है नहीं, इंग्रेडिएंट्स ऑफ अ पुअर क्वालिटी ना, तब पुअर क्वालिटी इंग्रेडिएंट्स से आप अच्छा कैसे बना सकते हैं, इवन इफ ए पर्सन इज ए गुड कुक. Yes. So this is what we have to understand, let's say that this. That's why here is always challenge. That's why people differ. सारे प्रैक्टिस तो सब लोग कर रहे हैं ना, पूरे मार्केट में सब लोग टेस्ट लिख रहे हैं, कितने सारे टेस्ट लिख रहे हैं, नोट्स पढ़ रहे हैं, राइट, लेकिन मार्क्स तो कुछ लोगों का ही आ रहा है ना, राइट. तो हाउ इट इज, सो दिस इज व्हाट द लेट्स से दैट कि those small things, marginal things, many a time cumulatively make big difference. Yes. And that's why students should learn it. That's why students should follow this. This is what we can take talk about this. Then since even questions not written, but let's have discussion of these questions. What you should have written, so that at least we can do the beginning on this. Now, let's say that we discuss through the case laws, because nowadays it has become how the Part 3rd of the Constitution promotes the idea of constitutionalism in India, right? This. Now the question is that we have been expecting this question, this. So we have been, let's say, expecting it is a matter of time. It is expected. First, we have linked with Part 3rd कि चलो किसी को स्टूडेंट्स को अगर ये पता भी नहीं है ज़्यादा तो एटलीस्ट फंडामेंटल राइट तो वो जानते हैं, तो दे विल बी एबल टू राइट विथ फंडामेंटल राइट्स. दिस इज फर्स्ट एस्पेक्ट. सेकेंड एस्पेक्ट इज दैट यू नो दैट ये कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल मोरालिटी दे हैव आस्क्ड. व्हाट दे हैव आस्क्ड? कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल morality. So in 2021 they asked constitutional morality in paper 2nd also, and 2 times they have asked constitutional morality in ethics paper. This. So when they have asked constitutional morality, the constitutionalism is nothing but essence of constitutional morality. Right? This. So that's why we have been expecting that. It is first. It is related to somehow basic structure. Already we have. Now we had a choice whether to ask basic structure or to ask this. You should know that UPSC tries to bring newness in the paper. If you see the question papers of the UPSC, so they always try to bring some, let's say that, different perspective in their question paper. This. And they are asking questions in more selective way rather than just regular same question you find this. So we could have asked a question on basic structure also, which is straightforward, let's say, this, and anyone will be able to write it. But we decided to go by constitutionalism, we can consider. Now, अब structure क्या होगा? तो normal structure we follow is right introduction, right body, right, then conclusion. Yes. Now, is it necessary to write introduction, and what we should write in introduction? In introduction, let's say that when we are writing introduction, so in introduction, see, you can directly start, instead of writing any, let's say that essence type, you can write essence type statement. Or you can start with basics, isn't it? So it depends. Essence type you are able to write, it shows your writing skill. Only those who have writing skill, they can start with this writing skill. And if you lack writing skill, तो हमारे पास कोई choice नहीं, हम part 3rd से भी शुरू कर सकते हैं. This. But it is not, let's say, so we can start basics means part 3rd. This, that aspect. So simply let's say that, we can again repeat it, the first third deals with fundamental rights of citizens. The fundamental rights of citizens, which are enforceable or which are justiciable. That is one line. The second line is that, let's say part 3rd, provisions that we have article, let's say that from 13, sorry. we have, let's say that article 12 to this 32, that can be mentioned. Then let's say that they deal with largely don'ts of government, what government should not do. This any violation can result into let's invoking of article 32. This, that way we can start with, right, this. So then in a way, let's say that part 3, right, by these things, let's say what it does, it imposes limitations. So it imposes limitations. So it imposes limitations, let's say that, imposes limitations on power of the government. That it should adhere by rule of law, it should not become arbitrary or absolute. This, it promotes, let's say, political democracy. Or democratic governance, that we can consider. So this way we are talking about part 3. Now we have to talk about constitutionalism. What is constitution? Since we have to relate it. Constitutionalism. So constitutionalism is nothing but it is an idea of, basically, it is idea of limited government. A government which is run, so a government which is run, right, by rule of law rather than, right, rule of let's say that rule of men. This, so basically it is idea, let's say that it is idea which this promotes constitutional governance. This, so it promotes, basically then you have to define that what is constitutionalism. Since it is new to you, it is difficult to understand. It may be, let's say, that a challenge, but let me tell that constitutionalism is nothing but it says that a government should be a lawful government. So when a government is lawful, so it will exercise its power in a limited fashion than an absolute government. It goes into the history, all history of constitution and all these things, how written constitution was adopted in US. This, so US also adopted written constitution. So why it adopted written constitution? Why most of the countries have written constitution? Why fundamental rights were adopted by most of the constitutions? Because they want to limit the power of the state as against the past before adoption of constitution, that the states were not limited by constitution, they had the rulers and the rulers enjoyed exercise absolute power. This, so that is how the idea behind this constitutionalism, which it seems, this is how I can say, it seems that part 3, the part 3 enshrines, the part 3 has enshrined, let's say, it enshrines the idea of constitutionalism. This, It has enshrined the idea of constitutionalism. Now let's say that we have to see that case law. Case law, let's say. So we can link with basic structure doctrine, Keshavananda Bharati case. We can link with Raj Narayan case. But finally, let's say that Supreme Court in IR Coelho case, if you talk any such case in which constitutionalism term was used, so constitutionalism as term was used, it was IR Coelho case, let's say that. And let's say ki Rameshwar Prasad case. So we have to mention, because here let's say that in IR Coelho case, let's say this is said that ki constitutionalism avers absolutism. That was his statement. This. So this was its statement, let's say that is how. So we can relate it, and then let's say that the question is talking. So some case laws are mentioned, although it is given, when you will give model answer, it is written in that. This. So let's take what the question is talking. Discuss, it is saying. So basically you have to write a bit of weakness. Right. So we have to write thereafter. After writing this, then you should write that how constitutionalism, part 3 talks about constitutionalism, it limits the power, but we find that how state at times behaves like absolute state. Yes, we can find how media, let's say there is arbitrary use of, let's say that laws, right? And there are so many cases, Ramesh Thapar case, Indian Express case, if you find in past. So how, let's say that Brij Bhushan case, in which Supreme Court has defended the freedom of press, you can say that. Or citizens are detained, you know that. Citizens are detained that, or let's say that we invoke UAPA law, we invoke National Security Act. The states, at times it seems that state is using power disproportionately. This, yeah, in some cases public order has not been justified, let's say internet ban. So those things we can also talk a bit negative, and then we can conclude this is how the fundamental right, means part 3rd, constitutes, let's say that soul of the constitution. So we can talk a bit relevance. B.R. Ambedkar talks how fundamental rights, especially constitutional remedy, is considered as soul of the constitution. So our constitution has provisions which protect the rights of the citizens, and that is how the idea of constitutionalism is promoted. So basically this way we can structure and write the answer, this is how. But then it is demanded that you should have knowledge related to constitutionalism, etc. And people may not yet be prepared to write such answers.
So here the major problem is about these cases, these case laws. Not each and every case law is there in mind.
Yes, that is how, let's say that. So we will try to, throughout those discussion, at least the two questions we are bringing, we will mention you some case laws. The way we are mentioning, that way preparation will be enhanced. Plus, let's say notes if you are, let's say you are getting, but then you have to read yourself so many things, and then you have to. So we will try to bring, see whether it is possible to bring those things. Give a list of that. This. So that is the, let's say that challenge. It is a challenge certainly. That's why we told that fundamental content. Are we able to write the fundamental content? That aspect of challenge. This, anyhow, let's take that. It described the nature of polity established, Indian influencing making of the. So we try to cover both aspects. Many times our approach has been to train you in such a way that if question is asked, you are able to answer. Not exactly ask the question the way UPSC asks. That should also be, because you should be ultimately empowered to answer the question, rather than ki you should be trained to answer those questions which UPSC asks. This. So this will test your general understanding. Do you have understanding, let's say, polity established? Simple, let's say that ki a person can introduce ki how, that ki historical underpinnings have profound influence on framing of the Constitution and Indian parliamentary system. That way we can introduce this. Then we can write, let's say, ki body part, and in this we can start about ki how, let's say that ki polities, British rule. So British rule started establishing polities since Regulating Act 1773, this reaching to Government of India Act 35. Then you can write some its brief characteristics. That's a centralized administration. This, so centralized administration. Then you know representation. Elections, this decentralization, this federal polity, local government, it depends ki how you write those features, then how they influence, let's say that. So influence, let's say that ki framers of the constituent assembly, plus let's say ki whatever the, let's say, parliamentary system we adopted, it is linked to them. This, the influence part you largely know, isn't it? Like first, structural part of the Constitution. Structural part influenced by Government of India Act 1935. This, then let's say that ki this idea of responsible government. Then parliamentary system, bicameral legislature. They are all influenced by Government of India Act 1919 aspect we can consider. This, then local government, how, let's say, Lord Ripon. Right, the Lord Ripon resolution on local self-government. So basically you have to write first part, second part you have to relate ki what we adopted, let's say that, and simply then we can go on concluding it. So concluding part, let's say that we can say that even if it was a colonial state, let's say that, and their idea or negative nature of the state was police state, negative aspect they had, still, let's say they laid down the foundation for a modern polity. And that modern policy, the foundation they lay down, that influenced our polity when we became independence. That our polity, whatever we adopted, it cannot be completely dissociated from the polity they established. Like let's say bicameral legislature we have, and bicameral legislature was introduced in 1919 Act. We have a public account committee and that was created in 1921. So that way 1-2 things we can mention, and that is how we can conclude. This is not a difficult question, right? It is difficult in the sense that are you able to, let's say, think in that macro way entire British time, then relating with. So this question has a different level of challenge. That question has knowledge challenge. Let's say sharp knowledge or specific knowledge challenge. This knowledge you have, but how I can articulate it? Here knowledge, people will not face the challenge of knowledge. That is how different questions pose different types of challenges. Then next is called India and US. Since we have told that we will ask one question related to PYQ in 5 questions, so that you can have PYQ practice also. This. We will also ask one PYQ. It is a PYQ question, you know that. It has already been asked. Right? Now, you should know that, let me tell, comparative constitution. Comparative constitution. And I will tell you that so far they have asked question from France, comparing France and India, US and UK. And each category twice. दो बार पूछा है उन्होंने. Right? Now, last year they have asked UK, 2023. So we ask one question which is related to US, which is third time they will repeat, if they ask. So they can ask India, France also, but again you have to take a call to try it. This. So that is how you can say, or you can ask India and Canada, another country, because Canada se bhi hum logon ne concurrent list, it has influence, that aspect. So basically this is what we can consider when we are talking about comparative aspect. Now, it is not that challenging. It says India and US are 2 large democracies. So examine the basic tenets on which the 2 political systems are based. Right? So basically largely candidates know about India, about US also. The basic tenets are, that is how the difference will be. What you write in basic tenets? So, what we'll write in basic tenets, let's see that, this. So, the 2 political systems. So, if you take India, if you take US, so what are the basic tenets? This, it has constitutional supremacy. This, it has constitutional supremacy. This, what US has. So US goes by, let's say that, supremacy of judiciary. This, basically its judiciary is, let's say, because separation of power, due process of law, because of that we can consider. The difference when we are talking. This is one, let's say. We have parliamentary system. It has presidential system. We do not have complete separation of power. This. But it has complete separation of power. Right. We have procedure established by law. It has due process of. Then we are quasi-federal. It is classic-federal. Quasi and classic. This. after writing differences, let's say, then we can say that the basic tenets can be that we have adopted our democracy, our constitution, both democracies are major democracies, but our democracy is based on the idea of responsible government. That is how we went for parliamentary democracy. US is based on stable government. That is how it has presidential system. This. So there are differences we can find between the two democracies, that our democracy is responsible type parliamentary, which is close to the UK type of democracy, Westminster model. And US has its own uniqueness in terms of adopting a written constitution. Then there's absolute fundamental rights. It has absolute fundamental rights, presidential system, separation of power, due process of law, because it had a different historical experience. This. So both are, let's say that both have two different tenets, that you can say, on which they are organized and structured. At the same time, they can have also some similarities. Right? Similarity in the sense that India has also borrowed some features of US constitution, written constitution, independent judiciary, fundamental rights you can consider. So we have also borrowed, let's say that, and we have not gone for UK type of, let's say, like lack of separation of power. We do also have separation of powers. So even if both can have two different tenets, but if you talk in a more broader sense, right, so both are democracies, that both have given fundamental rights, and India has moved closer towards US in terms of federal polity as well as due process of law, which has been interpreted by the Supreme Court in Maneka Gandhi case. Yes. So that way, let's say, basically we can write in this question. So in this question, what basic tenets people will focus, that will differ. But the difference will not be in terms of essence of the answer. Essence is that you should be able to tell India is different from US. So what the differences we have? At the same, we have still some similarities. This, and that is how it should have been answered, right? And that is how we'll find this. It is a bit challenging question. Yes. And that is called critically examine. This. So criteria of reasonable restriction under article have remained more pronounced, let's say. What it is saying, it is more pronounced than the right to freedom of speech and expression under article 19(1)(a) and critically examine. Right. So critically examine means कि negative है. We have to tell basically that कि saying that कि reasonable restriction has remained more prominent than freedom of speech will be, let's say, going too far or taking one side view. Right. In fact, even if let's say at times reasonable restrictions have breached, right, reasonableness struck by the court, at the same time the scope of fundamental right has also increased. The scope of freedom of speech and expression has also increased, and that increase has happened by judicial interpretations. That is how in essence you have to write the answer. Right. In essence, this is how the view will be in answer. Now how will you structure the case laws, other things? Right. So that will become a challenge, you know. So if you take, let's say, introduction, let's say, suppose we write introduction, we'll start with criteria of reasonable restriction. Simply we can say that, okay, although article 19(1)(a), right, So, Article 19(1)(a) deals with freedom of speech and expression, which are considered qualified in nature, means there can be reasonable restriction. There can be reasonable restrictions as against what US has, which gives absolute right. This can be. Then body part, let's say. Article 19(1)(a) gives freedom of speech and expression. This, but on the other hand, Article 19, Clause 2, have grounds and mention as many grounds you remember. It is 1 to 8. There are 1 to 8 grounds. So you can mention as per whatever. Some of them you can mention, not necessarily all can be mentioned. This. Now let's say that in general, we can say in general citizens enjoy freedom of speech and expression. This. Only in these 1 to 8 case, there can be its regulation. And even in this regulation case, let's say, even in this regulation case, state regulate, even in this case, citizen has Article 32. Citizens can challenge that if they are not reasonable. So that should be written. This. However, we can find that how there has been expansion. That you should talk the expansion. Expansion of Article 19, Clause 2. How there has been expansion. So you should know that First Amendment Act. First Amendment Act itself mentioned reasonable restriction. It was not original part of Constitution. The term was added by First Amendment, reasonable restriction. Then it also added some other grounds, like say public order, this incitement to violence, foreign friendly relation, this. The First Amendment expanded the scope of reasonable restriction. They were not mentioned originally. Means only 5 criteria were mentioned then. Right. Still one more criteria was added, let me say. 4 criteria, there was one more criteria which was added by 16th Amendment Act. In the model answer that we have given, it is given in that reference. You will receive one written model answer on that. So this, basically you have to write it. It shows that it has been expanded. This. Then let's say what is reasonable not defined. That we also write. What is reasonable not defined. It is not defined. Plus there are other aspects also. Other, let's say, you have sedition law, we can have National Security Act, UAPA, preventive detention, there can be several other such laws which government tries to invoke, and let's say that it goes on arresting people, detaining people. There are several such things which we can talk. Including you will find that how the courts have some journalists have been arrested, and how court, you know that the case Vinod Dua case, simply he criticized that the COVID handling by the government was not, let's say, properly done, and he wrote a post on social media and he was charged with sedition. The courts have told several times that how journalists can be charged against those, let's say, that crime which are done by terrorists. They are the normal citizens. Can you invoke against your normal citizens the law you invoke against terrorists? That was the question of the Court, anyhow, it shows pronounced. Question is saying that it is more pronounced. This, the pronounced means this is how you will find that chilling effect, act of chilling effect, and that was also Shreya Singhal case. (2015) and section 66A of Information Technology Act was struck. So that is how we have to give example. Yes, it can be said, but we cannot completely agree because Supreme Court has gone into, this is how you have to mention the case laws, Ramesh Thapar case, Brij Bhushan case, Indian Express case, how it has strengthened freedom of speech and expression. Yes, you should know these are the three fundamental cases that you should mention. Yes. Now, you should know that how there is expansion. Another expansion is right to information is a fundamental right. Another expansion is recent time right to internet. This Anuradha Bhasin case. This. So that is how we have to say. Therefore, you have to take a standard. Yes, reasonable restriction has remained a problem. That is how we go towards conclusion side. So you say this. So reasonable restriction has remained a problem. Reasonableness has not been necessarily respected by the state. Its actions have been arbitrary. But at the same time, freedom of speech and expression has seen its expansion also by judicial interpretation that today's citizens enjoy more rights than what they used to enjoy 20, 30, 40 years back. This. So we have to see in that light. However, still there is need for defining what is reasonable restriction, and that should be done by Supreme Court. It should give greater clarity on reasonable restriction, and that way we can conclude this answer. Right. And then finally, let's say if you take another aspect. So since this question has several parts, critically analyzed like this, it demands specific knowledge. The simple you can introduce by writing this, how Article 25 gives freedom of religion, but at the same time we find that that freedom of religion has also been misused. This is how we write introduction, essence aspect, right? Not basic aspect. So it has been how also misused because we have also incidents of religious convergence, and those convergence are also forcible convergence. This. So that way we can introduce this. Then the body part, let's say that. We start with explaining basic. Basic you write about Article 25. This. And you write what Article 25 talks about. So it talks about, let's say, this is how, right, freedom to profess, practice, right, freedom of conscience, propagate. A bit of, let's say that this is how you should know, the basic you should write. However, at the same time, it also imposes restrictions. It also imposes restrictions like in terms of public order, health, and morality. On 3 grounds that basic one should know. Now we can find out how the incidents, let's say, if the question is how the incidents, you know that. There have been incidents of religious convergence, etc., as you know that. So those incidents, and that resulted into, let's say, laws by states. Like first state was, let's say, Odisha. Odisha introduced a law during 1970s, which is we say as anti-conversion law. This. Then you should know that this anti-conversion law, thereafter you know that recent times will find this. Recent times you have UP, Karnataka, Gujarat, this Haryana. So other states they have tried to basically bring this. Now, when we talked about, let's say, Karnataka, Gujarat, they have brought it. So then the question is, let's say, they are trying to, let's say that anti-conversion. When we say anti-conversion, so anti-conversion means they are regulating conversion. The first time when it was brought by Odisha, so it was challenged in the Supreme Court. This. And the main case is this is Stannis plus case 1977. अब ये एक इसका फंडामेंटल कंटेंट हो गया. अब जिसको ये नहीं पता है वो नहीं लिखेगा. बस अब इसी के वजह से आपका पूरा आंसर जो है वीक हो जाएगा. यस. So although there was a case before this also in 1970 in which Supreme Court told that कि right to profess, freedom of conscience, practice, propagate does not mean right to convert others' religion. That is how Supreme Court, which it emboldens in Stannis, let's say that case, because this is the main case which determines the lawfulness of anti-conversion law. The Odisha.
How to remember these cases? I mean, how to do
this. See, the first thing is that कि इसके लिए देखो मेंस का प्रिपरेशन एक अलग तरीके से होता है कि आप टॉपिक वाइज प्रिपेयर करते हैं, फिर आप ये देखते हैं कि कौन सा टॉपिक इम्पोर्टेंट है, जैसे आने वाला है, और उस टॉपिक पे हमारे पास कंटेंट है कि नहीं. इसलिए कि जब तक कंटेंट नहीं होगा आपका मेंस का प्रिपरेशन नहीं होगा. यस, प्रीलिम्स का प्रिपरेशन में ये टेंशन नहीं है, वो एक अलग तरीके का टेंशन है. राइट. प्रीलिम्स के साथ ये भी है कि आपके पास चारों ऑप्शंस है, मतलब आप देख रहे हैं चारों ऑप्शन, उसमें से एक को करेक्ट करना है. मेंस में क्या है कि आपके पास क्वेश्चन है, ऑप्शंस नहीं है. राइट. कंटेंट आपको खुद लाना है. अब इसीलिए जैसे अब कोई भी टॉपिक सपोज वी आर गेटिंग, तो हम हर टॉपिक का एक पर्टिकुलर टाइप का कंटेंट होता है. यस. एंड दैट इज हाउ प्रॉपर नोट्स आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. यस. और वो नोट्स ऐसा होना चाहिए जो इस तरह की टेक्निकलिटी को एड्रेस करता है, क्योंकि बुक्स इस चीज़ों को एड्रेस नहीं करेंगे. बुक्स विल नॉट एड्रेस. बुक्स आपको बेसिक चीज़ें बता देंगे. दिस दैट इज हाउ बाय दिस प्रैक्टिस, बाय दैट वे यू नो दैट. Here it dealt with, so we have to say clearly, since question is saying that this question is saying right to convert religion, critically analyze this statement in the context of recent developments relating to freedom of religion and the regulatory steps taken by the states. So what we have told, regulatory steps taken by states, this we are trying. So this is what critically analyze the statement in the context of recent developments, right? Critically analyze. This is what critical analysis we are doing, that ki right, let's say right to convert religion. So now let's say that when we are doing, so Supreme Court has told that ki right to right to profess or practice religion does not mean right to convert others' religion, although you have right to convert your own religion. This you can convert yourself, but you cannot convert others first. And that convergence will be, this is how they say that, without any, it should not involve any force, right, fraudulent practice. It should not be forced, it should not be this, it should not be coerced. This. So, it uses, let's say that some terms, let's say it should not be forced sectors. It means, let's say that if convert, so you cannot convert others' religion, that is not the fundamental right. But if others convert themselves, so then that's not the any, let's say that problem. If other people convert themselves, so it is not a problem. But you don't have right to convert them. This plus whatever the means, if you adopt to convert them or influence them even, and that influence is related to force, fraudulent practice or coercion, so then it will be considered unlawful, and it can be that act can have punishment as per law. This is how states have brought it, right? Now, the answer does not end here. Then let's say the question comes that thereafter, because states have brought such laws and they are saying that they are regulating it, we say as anti-conversion. Right. Now let's take, there is Mr. A and there is, let's say, X, Y, Z, and they are somehow in touch with this person and they convert their religion themselves. How will know that he has not forced them? This, so there is a gray area. Now, since they have let's say that got conversion, the conversion, so now society reacts, and he is, even if he is not responsible, but he is punished. Because he will fail to prove that he has not influence. And the state can say that it is a fraudulent practice. This is one problem that we are saying. Second problem is, see, problem is with one way, let's say that. In our country, religious conversion, if it happens to any, let's say that person X, Y, Z, if they adopt Hinduism, so it is not a problem. This is how the society has become. It is not a problem, rather they are welcome, ghar wapsi. Right. But suppose ki they adopt, they are, let's say ki Hindu, they adopt any other religion, then that is a problem. That aspect you can consider. Next question is, you say that ki right to privacy is fundamental right. Right to privacy is fundamental right. And religious freedom is relation to God. This, and it is again a private matter. Religion is a private matter. You have told right to privacy is a fundamental right. Right. Are we encroaching in their privacy? Whom he marries or she marries, when he marries. So it is her, let's say, right. Should the state have concern in that? Right. It means even if right to profess and practice, this is how towards conclusion we have to tell, even if right to profess and practice does not include right to convert, but the matter is not very simple. Right. The state laws which have been brought by the different states, they seem to have some arbitrary provisions in terms of let's say that addressing the problems of religious conversion. Like what they have provision, the Uttar Pradesh has provision like this, ki if anyone wants to convert and marry, then the person should give notice to the district magistrate. District magistrate should publish in local newspaper and appeal to the people if they have no any problem. Right? Matlab, are you giving them to, let's say, people, handing over them? This, because in any normal situation, forget about inter-religious, inter-faith, inter-caste इतना प्रॉब्लम होता है, तो ये तो इंटर-रिलीजियस है, तो सोसाइटी को प्रॉब्लम होगा ही, right? This, so that is how, let's say, that it is somehow affecting the rights of people, let's say that, right? And that is how it demands, let's say, fresh hearing. In way forward we will write, Supreme Court should review its stainless judgment, because when the judgment was given in 1977, that time we did not have right to privacy. That time we did not have due process of law. Right? Thereafter, Supreme Court has strengthened rights of citizens, and these laws were made lawful that time. And in the, let's say, by that precedent, other states are trying to make law, but now they are adding harsher provisions, including they are making it non-bailable. This, that is how it is being said. The way forward is, yes, even if, let's say, there should not be fraudulent practice, but innocent people should not also be punished, and there should be also balance between privacy rights and, let's say, that state's right to regulate public affairs. So that is how you should know that this answer. So it is some questions if you talk. Yes. It demands multi-layer, let's say, that way we can consider. So these are the debates, and that is how the practice can be done. Right? If you come reading, although it is very difficult that every day you can read those topics. Right? Because tomorrow we have the topics related to Parliament, federal polity, state, union, executive. This, on that we will have discussion. Right? We'll finish today here. So we'll finish here. Right. Okay. Right.